In this video, we're gonna find out how well this old i5-6600K platform performs in gaming in 2022. But before that, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe down below, and thank you for watching. Now, before I begin with this video, I'd like to ask everyone for a small favor. Please go ahead and hit that like button down below. It really helps to grow the channel, and I appreciate it very much. Also, if you're new here, please do consider subscribing, as I have tons of videos on my channel, and hit that bell notification. That way you're up to date on my latest videos. So without further ado, let's get to it. And here we have the legendary i5-6600K, which is now over 6 years old, as it originally came out back in September of 2015. And it features 4 cores, 4 threads, max turbo frequency 3.9 GHz, 6 megs cache, and 91 watt TDP. Now, this was the Intel's intro into mainstream DDR4 platform, as well as the mainstream 14 nanometer technology, which lasted for many years to come, all the way up to this year. Just recently, they finally released the 10 nanometers. So this thing lasted for 6 years. Unbelievable. And back in its day, this was pretty much one of the more powerful platforms, unless you have enough money to spend on the 6700K. But nevertheless, this processor is excellent overclocker, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video, how well it holds up in today's modern games. I'm going to tweak it, I'm going to overclock it, and show you the best possible results. So now let me go over the system here, this full build, and then we're going to jump right into some benchmarks. So I'm going to start off with the processor, which is the i5-6600K, and it's currently overclocked to 4.7 GHz, along with the Gigabyte GAZ C170X Gaming 5 motherboard. This is a really good motherboard, lots of features. Nice looking too, with this red and black theme, which I try to maintain in this build. Next, I have the G.Skill RGBs. These are 2 sticks of 8 gigs each, DDR4, 3000 megahertz CL16s, and they're working fantastic with the XMP profile enabled. Now, for the cooling, I have this unique HP Omen water cooler. That's right, take a closer look. I was really happy to utilize this part, as I originally had a long time ago a little smaller size HP Omen with this water cooler, and I switched some parts around and I end up using this water cooler for this build here, which is fully compatible. There were nothing I had to change. I even kept the original fan here. This thing is really thick. You could see it on the radiator. Now when I increase the speed, now this kind of fan I think goes up to like 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, so if you run it full it becomes really loud, but the temperatures, I mean, they drop a lot. This is perfect for a little build like this. I'm really happy with the temperatures overall. Now, for the graphics card, I am using the EVGA GeForce RTX 3060. This is not the most powerful card out there, but it's perfect for a build like this, because I didn't want to go crazy. I just wanted to see how well it would perform with a mid-range card. And for the power supply, I have a 600 watt Corsair semi-modular, perfect for this build here. Also, for the hard drive, I have a 128 gigabyte M.2, just a standard one, not an NVMe, and an additional 1 terabyte hard drive storage underneath. Perfect little combination. And for the case here, I have the Cooler Master 5. This is not the RGB version. This is the one that with just the LED fans, which are red. Once again, to bring this whole theme with black and red, I think it looks pretty nice for an older build. And old builds could still look good. I'm telling you, this case has a glass panel. It looks fantastic. And after doing some tests, I conclude that it's still worth keeping an older platform like this. And if you've seen some of my other videos that I am testing out some of the older platforms, at the end of the day, it'll work. If you get the right balance, the right motherboard, right RAM, and maybe not such a powerful graphics card, you will get really good performance even out of a 4-core processor still today, and that's what I'm going to show you. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you with some benchmarks. Now here, really quick, I just want to show you one benchmark. As you could see, we're overclocked to 4.7 gigs, 1.320 volts. And just to give you an idea how still the single core is still pretty popular, I'm going to pick the top guy right here, Ryzen 9 5950X. And bench it against that. Of course, we're looking at the single core performance, and this is why you wonder why such old Intel processors still hold value after all those years. An old processor like this still has good single core performance. See, we're at 87% versus 100 here, only 30% less on the single core performance on a top tier Ryzen 9 here, or even compared to like i9-10900K. Look at the single core performance. It's only within 3%, and that's pretty amazing. That's why these processors still hold value. Same thing with the motherboards, are still pretty expensive as they become more and more rare to find. And if you compare this to the old AMD 8350, check this one out. Look at that. This was FX AMD chip that was around for many years until they finally switched to Ryzen. But look how much this thing decimates the 8350, which was still around for sale at the same time when the i5-6600K came out, and Micro Center, I remember that this chip was still selling at that time. Unbelievable. So that's it. Now we're on to some gaming test benchmarks, so stay tuned for that. Alright, so the first game I'm going to start off with is Cyberpunk 2077, and in this game you will see clearly a bottleneck on 1080p resolution. So let's take a look at the settings. I am on the Ultra preset, everything on Ultra, except motion blur off. And for this test, I'm not going to mess around with any of the DLSS settings or ray tracing. So those are going to be off, so we are going to get our true resolution. And as you can see, 1080p full screen. Okay, so quickly let's recap what I have here. I have an RTX 3060, which is slightly overclocked by 150 megs on the core and 350 megahertz on the memory clock. Also, the 6600K is overclocked to 4.7 gigahertz, and it is running on 1.325 volts. Pretty steady so far, no issues, looking pretty good. Also, 16 gigs of RAM, DDR4, 3000 megahertz. Now, like I mentioned, you are gonna get some bottleneck on 1080p with 4 cores. It doesn't matter how high the clock is. I mean, the higher you might get a little bit less, of course, but that's the reality. And that's why to really truly test something like this, we'd have to go at a higher resolution, which we are going to jump into 1440p and see how that looks. But nevertheless, the game is quite playable, looks fantastic, Definitely enjoyable. Okay, so we're averaging around 70 FPS. Let's see when we drop down to 1440p. See how that looks. Okay. Looks like we dropped quite a bit. Again, we are on Ultra preset with motion blur off. Again, it is still quite playable, but 60 FPS on 1440p here is on Ultra is out of the question. If we go down to high, will probably be the best setting for this option here.
Mom sent you?
Alright, well that concludes the test for this game. Let's see what we have next. Now in Valhalla, you could expect the same situation, some bottlenecking on 1080p resolution, but once again, nevertheless, it is still quite playable. Take a look at the settings. Full screen 1080p, VSync off, and we are on very high to ultra settings here, as you could see, with motion blur off. Pretty much this is what it gave me automatically for the settings. There we go.
My crew is in danger. I need to reach them.
Run smooth, no issues. Temperatures look good. Now I'm sure if I mess around a little bit I could tweak this up to 4.8 easily. But right now I'm happy with the results.
Better. I feel better. Stronger.
Alright, now we drop it down to 1440p. And this is it. That's what I was talking about, the bottleneck. Now we are pretty much at the same FPS as we were on 1080p. And actually even higher. So the conclusion is this processor will bottleneck on 1080p, and 1440p would really be the ideal resolution for this processor and any decent graphics card such as this one here. Not bad at all. Wow, I can't believe the 1440p is actually better FPS than 1080p. But yeah, that's what happens when you have the bottleneck. Alright, let's go on to the next game. As I wrap up this video with one last game, Fortnite. Now with this hardware, you're definitely not going to have any troubles running this thing at high FPS. So let's take a look at the settings. Got 1080p full screen, epic settings, VSync off, motion blur off, and I'm using the DirectX 12, which seems to perform better than DirectX 11, at least for this hardware. And I'm not going to be doing any DLSS or ray tracing tests here. So yeah, you're definitely going to have good FPS here. And with performance mode or lowering the settings down to low on 1080p, you're going to get 200 FPS easily. And this game does look pretty nice on Epic, even on 1080p. This game really came a long way with these updates. It's looking better and better. A lot more details on all the objects. Real nice. Now, what's my conclusion? Yes, I think this i5 is still excellent choice. You will get bottleneck on 1080p, especially with the nicer cards like this or higher tier. Of course, that's going to happen. But if you increase the resolution to 1440p or higher, you could go with even a more powerful graphics card with this 6600K, no problem. And it'll do its work, and you'll play smooth. You'll get good FPS and good visuals. Now, am I recommending you going out there and looking for it? Absolutely not. Because the way things are, sometimes with older hardware, it may even cost you more money, this processor and motherboard. If you go like on eBay, it probably cost you same amount of money than buying a lower end i3 or something like that with a motherboard, the newer ones. That's just the way it is. But if you still have this and you're rocking it with good hardware, you should get pretty good performance out of this thing still for years to come. Now let's take a look really quick on the last resolution here that I want to test, 1440p. Again, that's epic all around. And now we see the frame rates drop down to 70s. Still quite respectable. Looking good here. So that's it, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Share the video. Hit the bell notification. And I'll see you guys in the next one. So goodbye.